Hey guys, so for you that are fans of the Intuitive Tennis YouTube channel, you know that I've been trying to learn a one-handed backhand. In the beginning of 2023, I started a series of videos called the Project One-Hander. And I think this is an interesting series because it deals with several things. For example, if you are trying to learn a new stroke and you have a lot of muscle memory built up, there are some challenges that you're going to face. Or if you are trying to change a stroke and you have a lot of muscle memory built up, it makes things more difficult. In my case, because I'm a lifelong two-handed backhand player, there are some issues on my one-handed backhand because of it. Another very interesting thing about the Project One-Hander is the difference between practice and match play. So I've been training really hard on my one-handed backhand. My daily ritual has been coming to the wall. I have had Milan feed me balls very often and do drills with me. I've played out points, and I can tell you that I'm experiencing what a lot of you guys are experiencing, and that is not playing the same way in a match that you play in practice. So when I'm rallying against the wall, I get hundreds of one-handed backhands in a row without any problems. When I'm drilling and getting the balls fed, absolutely no problem. Hit the ball hard with good consistency, good control. But then once you start playing a match, everything goes out the window and I start missing one-handed backhand after the other. So now let me quickly tell you what have been some of the biggest challenges with me trying to learn a one-handed backhand, and it all stems to my muscle memory that's developed from my two-hander. So I have decided to abandon the idea of playing the one-handed backhand with an Eastern backhand grip. It's just too much of a change for me. I cannot hold the racket here. It's too much of a change in the wrist position, so I've settled on being in between the Eastern grip and the Continental grip, somewhere on the edge, kind of like the grip that Grigor Dimitrov has. I've tried very hard to adapt the Eastern backhand grip, but I just cannot. The wrist is in a bad position. I have a difficult time getting depth on the backhand. I frame a tremendous amount of shots, and when I obviously hold the racket in the Continental grip, it's suboptimal because when I hit very hard, it's hard to control the ball and keep it inside the baseline. So my compromise is I'm going to be on that edge between the Eastern grip and the Continental grip, and it's something that I've settled on and is working pretty well. Now luckily, my finish has improved tremendously. When I first started hitting the one-handed backhand, the arm was kind of bent on the finish and would go to about right here. Now the flexibility has increased. I've gotten stronger. Some of the muscles have developed in my shoulder blade, and I'm finishing much further around the body. This has been a tremendous improvement. It's not where I want it to be. I want it to be like the pros, but there might be some physical limitations in my shoulder. But nevertheless, my finish, which was my biggest weakness, has gotten a lot better. A lot of you guys are asking me, Nick, what does a finish have to do with a stroke? Who cares? The ball has already left the racket. Well, I can tell you that the finish is one of the most important elements of any stroke because there's a delay between our intention and the muscle executing the action. So by you finishing a certain way, this is going to have a tremendous impact on the contact itself. If a finish wasn't important, then you wouldn't see every single high-level player finish their stroke. In the vast amount of cases, when do you see players not finish a stroke? When they're in emergency situations, when they don't have time to finish, when they're bunting, blocking the ball, when they're redirecting the ball. But in the vast majority of strokes, the finish is extremely important, and I can proudly say that it's gotten a lot better. And let me show you. So now I'm able to wrap the racket around my body a lot more. You can see how much further it goes. Now the tip of the racket still at times points towards the left. I'm trying to get it to point as much to the right as possible because that can help tremendously with that vertical swing path and the ability to create topspin. But you can see how much further my arm goes, and I've been able to do this with a tremendous amount of practice. I don't feel any pain. My shoulder has gotten a lot stronger, and I've definitely improved in this aspect. Now luckily, a lot of the fundamental elements that I do really well on my two-hander are helping my one-hander. Let me give you one example. That is my preparation. I have a good preparation on my two-handed backhand. I turn my shoulder blade towards the ball. I have a dip in my front shoulder. And I basically do the same thing on my one-handed backhand just from muscle memory. So luckily that part of the one-handed backhand is fine. Now as far as the style in which the racket goes back, again, there's a lot of muscle memory. I don't have a vertical position of the racket like some of the pro players have, and then I don't drop the racket in the back. It's very similar how I take my racket back on a two-hander, which is like this, right? The hands are kind of on the bottom, the tip of the racket is slightly up. And very similarly on my one-handed backhand, I do this. I don't have a high loop. And honestly, I've experimented with the loop and I've found no improvement whatsoever. In fact, I found that my timing was worse. And I've done a tremendous amount of research on the one-handed backhand. You will see a lot of players who have different styles in regards to the take back, especially if you look at some of the one-handed backhands from the past. You will seldom see a loop. You'll see more of a straight take back on the bottom. And the reason why this is not a concern compared to the forehand, for example, because on the forehand a loop is far more important because the torso rotation starts prior to the forward phase, where whether we're talking about a one-handed backhand or a two-handed backhand, the rotation into the ball is happening simultaneously with the forward phase. So in other words, we don't open up early on the one-handed backhand or the two-handed backhand. We start to open up when that racket butt cap is going towards the ball, and for that reason the loop is not important. Now, is it important to keep the racket head slightly up before it goes down? Yes. I think that can give you a little bit more rhythm, a little bit more momentum, and the stroke is overall going to feel smoother, and that's definitely something that I'm paying attention to on my one-handed backhand. So out of a rally, I'm doing really good, but you want to know what the biggest problem is on my one-handed backhand, and something that I'm going to have to spend a lot of time practicing the next 4 months? That is the return of serve. I have an extremely difficult time returning the ball with my one-handed backhand. Of course, my two-handed backhand return is a lot easier. And when I get a ball to my backhand and I try to hit a one-handed backhand return, what it turns into most of the time is a bunt or a block. Now, if I'm just returning serves, I'm not playing out points, I can try to take a cut at it, but even then I'm having some difficulty, especially when the ball gets a little bit higher. And therein lies the biggest advantage of the two-handed backhand, that is the high ball. High balls are really, really tough when it comes to the one-hander, and that's something that I'm also going to incorporate into my practice in the next 4 months, because I'm definitely going to see a lot of kick serves to my backhand. I'm definitely going to see a lot of high topspin shots to my backhand. And if I don't practice those scenarios, no matter how good my technique is on the one-handed backhand of a regular ball, that is one of the reasons why when I step on the match court, the one-handed backhand is guaranteed to fall apart. Now, some of you guys have seen me play matches and you're wondering, Nick, you're hitting your two-hander. Why is that? Did you abandon the one-handed backhand? Is the project one-handed backhand over? Not at all. I have to continue to hit my two-handed backhand, because if I don't hit my two-handed backhand for a year, my left arm is going to atrophy even more than it already has. I already told you guys about this. I saw a frightening picture of myself in college hitting a backhand. I see my left arm was way bigger than it is now. My left arm is completely atrophied. My right arm is a lot bigger than my left arm. And that's from teaching, because I don't really hit two-handed backhands. When I teach, I hold balls in my left hand and I hit one-handed backhand. So for that reason, I do put a lot of emphasis on always practicing my two-hander so that I can keep my left side of my body somewhat strong. Now, you want to know something funny? Since I started doing this project one-hander, my backhand volley has been the best it's ever been in my whole life, and I feel a lot more stability than I've ever had before. See, one of my weaknesses, especially when I was younger, was that when I hit a backhand volley, my wrist would always kind of collapse and I would try to keep it as firm as possible, but there was just a weakness in the forearm, and I feel more secure, more stable in my forearm now than I ever have before. And I attribute that to doing a lot of one-handed backhands. I've definitely gotten stronger on this side of my arm. So I got my heart rate up. It's hard to estimate how many balls I've actually hit in this session, but it was at least 1,000. And it's a really good workout. I did primarily one-handed backhands, but I also did some overheads, I did some serves, I did some forehands. And now I'm going to do a little bit of fitness, a little bit of stretching, and then I'm going to go back home. You're wondering, Nick, why are you walking backwards? That's weird. Well, I'm going to tell you why. I listened to a John McEnroe interview once, and he said that he used to walk backwards when he played golf to improve his hamstring strength. So I sometimes walk backwards. It's a great form of exercise. So look out for the season finale of the project One-Handed Backhand coming out towards the end of the year. And keep in mind that when you're working on a stroke, trying to improve it, maybe you're learning a new stroke, it doesn't come easy, guys. It takes a tremendous amount of work. You have to solve one technical problem at a time. Don't try to cram it all in, or you'll get paralysis by analysis, okay? One technical element at a time, whether you're correcting it or learning it. And it's simple. You just got to get the reps in, the correct reps, I might add. And just think long term. That's why I gave myself a whole year. And by the way, a year is probably not enough. This should probably be a 5-year series, but I don't want to make you guys wait that long. But tennis is not a sprint, it's a marathon. And there's going to be a lot of failures along the way. And you just have to be patient and keep putting in the reps. And you'll definitely see improvements like I have on my one-handed backhand. So I will see you guys in the next video.